His mic is muted.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you very much, everybody, for turning up. Just if we could double check anything wrong with any of the audio, if anyone wants to shout out in the chat and let me know, it should be all good. And again, thanks everyone for turning up. We've got Dunkin Atheism, and we've got Randolf Richardson, the founder of Canadian Atheists. So if Randolph, if you want to just introduce yourself, and we go over to Duncan then.
Okay, hi. My name is Randolf Richardson. I am the founding president of the Canadian Atheists, and we are actively interested in countering attempts to vilify atheists, and also we have concerns about human rights and rights and freedoms. We want to make sure that everybody has an equal crack at expressing themselves freely, and we notice that there are often attempts to try to curtail that, sometimes from the religious right and sometimes from other directions as well. And so we work toward that aim. So we're also making an effort to normalize atheism, because we do notice that there are people who think it's abnormal, and I really don't think that's the case. And anyway, you can find out more about Canadian Atheists at www.canadianatheists.ca. Thank you very much.
Yeah, all the bits and bobs are in the descriptions. You want to contact Randolph, his websites and all is in the description. Duncan, if you want to give away intro.
Sure, I go by the screen name Dunkin Atheism. I'm known by other screen names. I'm a Bible-believing Christian, and I debate against anybody who opposes the Christian worldview, and more commonly, atheism.
Perfect. Short, sweet, to the point. We've agreed behind stage that we're going to give Duncan the opening statement. He's going to say his wee bit, and then Randolph will go with his. So, Duncan, if you want to make an opening statement there and just start with that.
Okay, my position is that the Christian worldview is the only coherent worldview in order to have viable and intelligible propositions and predications. The reason why it is the only coherent worldview is because the God of the Bible who exists has revealed himself in natural revelation, wherein all facts indicate that one true God. And God has additionally revealed himself in special revelation through the course of history, whereby he caused over 40 different authors to record objectively and accurately and infallibly his interaction with them. And it functions as the final authority. So my position will be that to deny this will cause one's position to just drop into an abyss of absurdity. It will be reduced to an absurdity. While my opponent will probably try to represent his atheism as a lack of belief, claiming to be neutral. By claiming to be neutral, he's made an indirect claim that the mind of man can reason without necessitating or referencing God as the irreducible, indispensable primary. My opponent will either have to have his reason will have to be irreducibly primary or ultimate, or he doesn't have a necessary primary in order to invoke anything. And one other thing, what he will most likely attempt to do is not want his worldview to be examined or questioned or the basis of his propositions.
Perfect. Randolph, that was not too long. If you want to try and match the time, go with that.
Okay, so with the proposition or the subject of this debate being Christianity versus atheism, Duncan is correct that I am seeing atheism as an absence of belief in deities. I see it as a classification, so it doesn't even fit as a position in that regard, because atheism, I look at it this way because that fundamental characteristic of not believing in deities is common even with other definitions that are out there. They all share that commonality. So I stick with the fundamental on that one. I see that Christianity, like some other religions, many other religions perhaps, have a conflict. Can't always coexist well with atheism, and even other religions. They have to be the one that rules everything, and many of the followers sometimes will even assert that things like if every person in the world was a Christian or a Muslim or whatever religion it is, then we could realize world peace. I'm not convinced that that's the case. We see multiple denominations that fight with each other and even fight within each other, especially with Islam. We see that. It used to be more commonplace with Christianity in the past. There is a bit of a pattern there. With atheism, there is no doctrine that requires people to object to religion or to exclude it or exclude people believing in it. So as far as coexistence goes, I find that atheism is in the lead here in this point. So I'm going to leave the other points that Duncan has made because I don't think opening statement is meant for responding.
Well, if there's anything that you want to address in that, Duncan, we'll start it back and forth, and with the exception of the two of yous over talking each other and screaming at each other, I'm going to just sit back and watch the two of yous at work. So if you want to return...
Okay.
One thing I'll add to that is, as an atheist, I don't really have an atheist worldview. I may have some worldviews, but as far as atheism goes, it doesn't inform me on having a worldview. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, you said atheism has no doctrine that is excluded. Is that correct?
Atheism has no doctrine that I'm aware of. I defined it because many religious people have told me that it exists, but I haven't found one. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, the theory of evolution, for example, is atheist doctrine," and no, that's a scientific document, a scientific theory. It is not something that is part and parcel with atheism. And in fact, there are many atheists who know absolutely nothing about science because there's a lot of diversity and different interests. So I hope that answers your question.
Actually, no. I was paying very close attention. You stated that atheism has no doctrine excluded.
No doctrine excluding other religions or excluding people choosing to believe in religions.
Okay, so do you exclude the doctrine where there is an ultimate God, creator, and with a distinction of creation? Do you exclude that from your reasoning?
I don't take a position on it, so I guess the exclusion.
You sure you do? You most certainly do take a position. Okay, I'll ask you right now: do you assert that God is the necessary precondition for the actuality, viability, and intelligibility of all facts? Do you assert that?
No, I don't assert that.
Okay, good. That's an indirect denial then. Since you don't assert it, you deem that it is not necessary.
Now, I'm not saying that the opposite. I'm not asserting the opposite of that either.
Well, your position is that you can reason without referencing or necessitating the irreducible primary, which would be God. Is your atheism, as you represented here tonight, is it the product of your reason that necessitates God or not?
You're talking about God being the necessary primary.
Yeah. Do you reason without the necessity of God?
As far as I know, there's no God involved and no goddess involved in any of that.
So your reason does not necessitate God as an irreducible primary then, is that correct?
Sorry, a little bit of audio broke up, not something...
Yeah, I define God philosophically, excuse me, in part, that God, by definition, being ultimate and absolute, would be irreducibly and necessarily primary, or excuse me, indispensably, irreducibly and indispensably primary. In the Christian worldview, that definition is a necessity. But your reason, okay, is without the necessity of God being irreducibly primary when your reason is secondary. Okay, so you do indirectly deny God as a necessity, because you reason without starting with God as the irreducible primary.
So if somebody tells me there are multiple deities and they all work together to make this universe and they all came about together as a primary source of the universe, I would have the same reaction. I don't believe that. That doesn't mean that I'm stating it's not true. I'm not ruling it out.
You have ruled it out because you refuse to invoke that God is necessary. So you reason without the necessity of referencing God as the irreducible primary. Is your reason irreducibly and indispensably primary, where it is the ground of all existence, or is your reason derivative and secondary?
I'm not I'm not stating that the God doesn't exist. I'm not ruling it out. You're saying that I'm taking a position.
That's not an answer to my question.
But you're telling me I'm taking a position when I'm saying I'm not taking that position.
You are taking a position. You're doing so indirectly by implication. We can implicate ourselves indirectly even while claiming to be neutral. Now, the question that I asked you, all right?
I'm not claiming
Darth,
to be
just
neutral.
before you finish, Darth, you've been speaking for most of it. I'll let you answer your question, and then we're going to shift the control over to Randolph for 5 minutes. It's just you've been speaking for most of it. You haven't given him a chance, so you speak your question. He'll answer it, and then if Randolph, if you can sort of lead the questioning for 5 minutes or so.
Okay. Sure.
Your reason is your reason irreducibly and indispensably primary in existence, where all things in existence derive ontologically from your reason, or is your reason derivative and contingent?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't believe that my reasoning is primary. Like you've thrown a lot at me. I'm trying to make sure I understand your question clearly, because at the beginning part of your question, you're asking if it's irreducibly primary.
Yeah. Is your reason contingent? Because I'm trying to show you how you indirectly deny the existence of God as the irreducible primary. So is your reason contingent, or is your reason eternal and unconditionally non-dependent and irreducibly primary in your model of reality?
So you're asking if my reason is contingent. You mean, is my reason contingent on your deity?
No, is your reason contingent on
please,
anything?
He got less than a minute and you've interrupted him.
I'm clarifying the question.
Yeah, you've clarified it twice. Please let the man answer.
I'm trying to understand it, so yeah.
Is your reason contingent upon anything, or is your reasoning ultimate, absolute, eternal, and irreducibly and indispensably primary in your model of reality?
My reason is, I don't know if my reason is objective. It is. I don't consider it to be absolute.
Okay, so it's contingent then.
Okay, contingent on what?
That's for you to answer. Okay. Now,
I told you I don't know.
Well, if you don't know, then you don't. Then basically, then you don't have grounds for reason, do you? Then your claim to reason would be arbitrary in your model of reality.
Rather than tell him, would you let him answer, please? Rather than tell him, let him answer. He's had very little time to speak.
I do take doubt as my ally, and that means that I question my own reasoning when I come to conclusions on things. And there are many things that I have not come to conclusions on. One of which is that I cannot be 100% certain that a deity does not exist. I also cannot be 100% certain that a deity does exist. So in that regard, I don't have a position that's fully formed on that I could say is absolute.
No, but you're claiming. Do you have you require a rational justification or warrant for God being irreducibly primary, where God would be the origin point of all things, the creator and sustainer of all things, but you're claiming to reason without referencing anything ultimate or God. That would make your reason incoherent, because then your reason wouldn't depend or derive on anything. How can you have a dependent, here's the question, how can you have a dependent derivative fact such as reason that doesn't depend upon anything? That would be a logical contradiction.
Depends on logic and my own ability, my own intellectual ability to try to work it out and come to what seems like a reasonable conclusion. As I mentioned, I have not been able to do that, so I don't have a fully set position on this.
You didn't address my point.
Okay.
Your reason is contingent. Okay. But you don't have anything that it is contingent upon ultimately. So what you're presenting is a dependent fact that doesn't depend upon anything ultimately. That's a logical contradiction.
So what do you think that my reasoning should depend on?
Well, your reasoning does, and everything else about you and myself and everything else in this world ultimately derives from what is irreducibly and indispensably primary God, and we know this because he has revealed it in both natural and special revelation. Now, you simply do not accept that as necessary and sufficient justification. Unfortunately, in that response, you don't have any grounding for justification, demonstrability, or reason in your worldview. You just admitted it. So your worldview right now, in your non-acceptance of God as being irreducibly primary, your worldview and everything you assert from that has been reduced to absurdity. And the reason why is in order for you to assert, I'd like to finish my statement.
Yeah, I know.
I'd like to finish my statement.
Okay, I'm going to let you finish your statement.
In order
and then
for
I'm going to
you,
let Randolph continue the questioning. He got one question, and you've been questioning him. Finish your statement. Back to Randolph.
In order for you to assert anything, in order for you to assert what is or can be, and to assert what cannot be, you're going to be able to know and assert what is irreducibly primary and indispensably primary that will prescribe what is possible and impossible. But you have admitted here tonight you have no idea what is irreducibly and indispensably primary. Therefore, you have admitted you have no grounds whatsoever to assert what is possible or impossible. Your atheist worldview has been reduced to absurdity when you reject the revelation of the Christian God.
Okay, now, his view can't be reduced to anything if you don't let the man speak. So, Randolph, if you can answer that one, if you can pick one part of that big statement, refer to it, answer it, and then if you can start asking Duncan some questions and you can lead the conversation a wee bit, please.
Okay. Having a way of reasoning is the problem that I have is I don't know everything about the universe. In fact, as part of humanity, we don't know everything about the universe yet. Heck, we don't even know about the cosmos, let alone our local universe. So for me to say that I'm certain enough to make the determination that a deity does or does not exist is I don't have enough information. That's the problem that I'm in. You're talking about in an assumptive way that as if it's known that this deity is in existence and actually is the creator of life, the universe, and everything. But I think you're going way back to the very beginning, which is fine. I'm okay with that.
No. I'm not simply going back to the beginning. It's contemporary as well. The irreducible primary and indispensable primary.
Randolph
I'm clarifying his point.
Randolph,
do you mind,
very
Randolph,
little
if I
time,
clarify?
Duncan. You just keep talking and you let the man finish.
Well, I'd like to hear his clarification.
Okay, go on then.
Thank you.
Yeah, when I refer to what is irreducibly and indispensably primary, it's not simply chronological, but it's also contemporary. Now, in your response, you did not address what I had to say. Now, since you have stated, keep it
real simple for me, please.
Yeah, I'll keep it really simple. Since you have stated you do not know what is irreducibly primary or an indispensably primary, then you do not have any grounds whatsoever to tell us what is possible or impossible for anything, because you don't know what prescribes, not describes, but what prescribes possibility and impossibility. Now, if I'm mistaken, can you tell us what is ultimate and indispensably primary that prescribes what is possible? Otherwise, if you state what anything that's possible or is, you're making arbitrary statements from atheism.
Well, I would think that absolutely nothing could be a possible source of the entire cosmos. And it seems to me that that may actually be more credible than a Christian deity. But again, I don't have absolutely nothing to experiment, so I'm looking at two possibilities. And then if I consider a third possibility of multiple deities being the source of life, the universe, and everything, how do I know that your idea of a single deity is correct and the polytheistic idea of multiple deities is incorrect? How do we know that one is more reliable than the other?
Well, you didn't address my question. The question
no,
was...
Duncan, he was getting it. No, he's leading it now. You got to ask him lots of questions. We've been going for over 20 minutes and you've led most of the questions. He has asked you a direct question.
To him. He's not objecting.
Please answer his question.
Duncan, when you ask the question, you're throwing a lot at me.
Can you repeat my question that I gave to you?
I can't, because you gave me a lot. You asked me, you did talk a little bit about how can I determine possibility and impossibility. There was a lot there. If you could keep it real.
I said, what is it indispensable and primary, that prescribes what is possible and impossible, what can be and what cannot be. What prescribes that? Because if you don't tell me what that is,
let him answer.
you have
Don't tell
no
him. Just
ground. Will
let
you
him
stop
answer.
interfering? Would you stop interfering, please? We're having a good conversation, and you're interfering.
You're
okay?
talking, over talking.
You're actually. Randall's conducting himself very appropriately, and you're running interference for him. Okay, and I'm not running roughshod over him. So I would appreciate that you stop micromanaging. Now, Randolph, what is it that is indispensable and irreducibly primary that prescribes whatever you invoke is possible or impossible?
Okay, that prescribes what is possible. I'm just trying to make it clear in my mind what it is you're asking here. So you're asking me, and what I believe you just said is you're asking what's indispensable and irreducibly primary that can prescribe possibility and impossibility?
No, that what does prescribe all possibility and impossibility?
All possibility and all impossibility. That's a huge question. That sounds like something that an entire philosophy department at university would need to...
Do you have an answer?
So why does it need to be all possibility and all impossibility?
If you don't acknowledge that something is irreducibly and indispensably primary that prescribes possibility, then you will be in a complete chance world where anything goes, and then you will not be able. Then you will not be able to demarcate what is possible and impossible. You may assert it, but you will not be able to ground it. Now, what I'm trying to show you is in your non-acceptance of the revelation of the Christian God, you are not accepting that the Christian God is irreducibly and indispensably primary, and that God, the God of the Bible, prescribes what's possible and impossible. So when you tell me how you reason about this, how you reason about that, you're telling me about what is and what cannot be, what is possible and impossible. But your worldview does not have any grounding or a basis to tell us what is possible. Do you?
I have my observation of reality as I perceive it, just as I assume that you do and others do. You're venturing a little bit, I think, into a naturalistic, materialistic, possibly kind of view of the world. And there is an idea.
No, I haven't.
Well, it's implied, I think.
No, it's not implied.
Right.
Well,
Darth, you will... No. Richard will... I'm just going to interrupt here. Duncan, stop overspeaking him. I will micromanage on my channel. I will moderate the chat if I need to. You are overspeaking him and not giving him the same amount of time. You are still leading the questioning at least 10 minutes after I said that Randolph was to lead the questioning. We are going down a route and it's just you in charge. It's not you in charge. It's me in charge.
So to know all possibility and or all impossibility would require to know, I think, from a logical standpoint, what every single atom molecule in the universe is doing, what its spin is, what its kinetic force is, its temperature, different things like that. This is information that I just don't have, and I don't believe that anybody has that, because nobody's shown me that they do have that.
Is that a statement of possibility?
Well, I'm describing what would be required to be able to make a statement of what all is possible and what all is impossible. And I don't think that it's possible for somebody to be able to do that, because we don't actually know what every...
Well, on what metaphysical grounds can you tell me anything is possible or impossible? Do you have that grounds?
Based on what I have been able to observe as repeatable, and my observation and understanding of based on my experiences of reality, I can base it on that. I happily admit that I don't have a full understanding of reality. I don't think anybody does. But from what I am able to ascertain...
But you're telling me what's possible, aren't you? You keep on making statements of possibility. What specifically prescribes any possibility at all? What is it that prescribes it?
Yeah, that's a deep question. That's a good one.
Well, you've rejected the necessity of referencing the God of the Bible, who has revealed himself in natural and special revelation. And what I'm demonstrating to you is Your non-acceptance of the revelation, the natural and special revelation of God, reduces your worldview and any assertion that you make to absurdity. Because now, if you can't tell me what prescribes what is possible and impossible, then any statement that you make that is in reference to something that is or is not possible or not possible is arbitrary.
Well, I could take a six-sided dice, and I can tell you that the possibility, there's a range, that if I throw it at the table and it lands one face up, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. There's a possibility of those.
It's the problem with that is
bits and pieces. I can't tell you everything about
the problem
reality.
with that is you're presupposing that there's something static, that things stay. What you're presupposing is that there are some things that stay static over time. You're just invoking more possibility, but you have just told me you don't know what prescribes possibility, do you?
I would say reality.
Okay, what is reality? Is reality something concrete, or is it an abstract set?
From a philosophical standpoint, it's abstract.
Okay, so it's an abstract set. So do all of the array of particulars out there are all of... Okay, but you see, just appealing to an array of particulars, are these array of particulars irreducibly and indispensably primary?
They are fundamental to our existence, it seems.
That's not addressing my question. Are this array of particulars that you refer to in an abstract set of reality? You're saying that reality is what is irreducibly and indispensably primary. So what you're appealing to is this array of particulars as being indispensable and irreducibly primary. Now, the problem is this: are they without a unifier? You can't prescribe what's possible and impossible.
That's right. I can't make that prediction on everything that's possible and everything that's impossible, which is what you've asked me to do.
You can't make any statement of possibility, can you?
I just give you an example of how I can.
Okay, what is it that's irreducibly primary that prescribes any possibility, including what you just said?
Okay, like for the dice example, that would be the table and the dice themselves.
But that's presupposing matter, energy, causality, and laws of nature. Are they ultimate and irreducibly primary, or is there something that is irreducibly primary that secures that?
Okay, so it seems to be that that's the case, but I can't say with 100% certainty that
so
it is.
You have no grounds to say what anything is possible?
I'm not saying that. I gave you an example of the dice.
No, I asked you what I asked you what is it that is irreducibly and indispensably primary in existence that will prescribe anything at all that's possible. You said reality, which is a nebulous phrase, which you said is an abstract set of particulars. Well, that would not be an array of unconnected, unrelated particulars would not be primary in and of itself, because you haven't given me a unification with an array of particulars. So I'm asking, what is it that is ultimate, irreducibly primary, and indispensable? Appealing to an array of particulars does not address the question, Randolph.
It actually might, because you seem to be assuming that there has to be one. You seem to be assuming there has to be one source for everything, and one primary thing, and I'm not convinced that it has to be just one.
Oh, okay. So then you believe that each of these individual unconnected particulars are irreducibly primary? Well, they wouldn't be irreducibly primary if they're unconnected, unrelated particulars, Randolph. That's incoherent.
Well, you're choosing to use the terminology irreducibly primary, which and that carries with it, seems to carry with it an assumption that there's one source for everything. Why does
let him finish? Let him finish.
Particulars?
Let him finish.
Is there anything that unifies?
Randolph, if you can finish what you were saying, and then Duncan address it.
Okay. Do you believe that there's one thing that is the source of all life, the universe, and everything, or are you actually okay with there being multiple? source.
No, I've already answered the question that the only thing it can be is the triune God of the Christian scriptures, but you don't accept that. So now what you want to tell me that what is irreducibly primary are unconnected, unrelated particulars. Well, then nothing would be irreducibly primary.
So how do we rule out that it isn't multiple unconnected?
No, that's the problem for you, because I asked you what is irreducibly primary. You want to say that there's an array, a multitude of particulars. These are unrelated, unconnected particulars that are irreducibly primary. So you have multiple unrelated, unconnected things that are primary. Is that your position?
I can't rule it out. That's the thing.
No, I asked you if that's your position.
No, I said I can't rule that out. I'm looking at it as a possibility.
Okay, so you don't know what's irreducibly primary?
Let him finish.
Well, because you have presented to me one possibility, that everything comes from your Christian deity, and that is one source of everything. And I'm saying, well, how do we know that it's not other possibilities?
Asking me a question does not provide me with the basis that your worldview has a foundation to make intelligible statements. What I want to know is, do you have the capacity at all to assert that anything at all is possible? Do you have that capacity?
I suppose I do.
Okay, what is it that's irreducible
Let
and
him finish, Duncan. I'm just going to mute you
that?
again. If you keep speaking and it's not a debate, it's just your show. It's not your show.
We're having a conversation.
No, you're over talking him for at least 60 to 70% of this.
We're having a conversation. You need.
I just wanted to add to what I was saying is that one example of a possibility. You asked for any possibilities. The possibility that I could predict would be the dice. We're going to have a range of 1 through 6.
You're not understanding the question.
Okay.
Clarify. I'm not asking you what are potential possibilities. I said, what is it that prescribes that there can be possibility or impossibility?
Well, from what I can tell, it's reality, which includes things like logic.
We've already covered that.
Let him finish. Let him finish. He answered one word and you cut in. You asked him a question. He got one sentence before you cut into him. Let him at least speak for a couple of minutes. See if he can do that.
Randall is not offended by me having follow-up questions. So
I don't care if Randall's offended by it or not. I do not want this to be. This is not the Duncan show. This is not the Duncan show, and you will not just keep talking and talking and talking.
Yeah, Duncan, I would like it if I could actually provide a more complete answer, though. I am trying to do that, and because okay, let's start again here.
If you call reality is the set of all entities. Are all the members?
He didn't even get to start. He said, let's start again, and you instantly interrupted him. He wanted to give a more succinct answer. Let him.
I just asked for clarification, and okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's not coherent to say reality is irreducibly primary. Is reality one or the many, Randolph?
Reality.
Because let me rephrase the question. When you say reality is the sum of all extant entities. Okay? Now, it's not coherent to say that because some of the members of the set are not irreducibly primary. You said the set is an abstraction of a collection of many particulars. Now, some of those members of the set are secondary. Some of the members of the set are secondary. So I want to know within the set, specifically, what is irreducibly and indispensably primary, because some of the members of the set are secondary and contingent, so they can't be irreducibly primary.
Okay, well, I would have to say for reality, the cosmos would be primary, because the cosmos would be life, the universe, and everything. What is the cosmos? We don't know what that is yet. We don't know.
The cosmos, is the cosmos eternal and unconditionally non-dependent?
I don't know the answer to that.
If you don't know that, then it cannot be irreducibly primary. Whatever is irreducibly primary and indispensably primary will be ultimate and non-contingent. What you're describing is a contingency. The point I'm trying to make to you, in your rejection of the revelation of the Christian God, your position has been reduced to a position of complete absurdity because you have no grounds to assert possibility. In order to assert any possibility at all, you're going to need to know and tell us what is irreducibly primary, indispensably primary, that prescribes any possibility at all. But your answer is you don't know. Is that correct?
My answer is that I don't know everything about the cosmos. I don't know everything about life, the universe, and everything. I do the best I can with my understanding of reality.
Not an answer to my question.
Mm-hmm. So,
do you know what is irreducibly and indispensably primary?
No, I don't know.
Okay, good. Then you have no grounds to assert possibility, do you?
What would be your grounds on that?
I don't agree.
Okay, so you don't agree. So you do have ultimate, indispensable primary grounds to assert what's possible?
I have the capability intellectually to assert what I think may be possible.
No, you're making another statement of possibility. I want to know what is indispensable and irreducibly primary that prescribes any possibility at all. Because if you don't designate that, then you are in a chance world where anything is possible. And if anything is possible, you cannot affirm or deny anything, which will reduce your worldview as an atheist to absurdity. So once again, what is it that is irreducibly and indispensably primary that prescribes any possibility and impossibility?
Okay, so I assume that my understanding is you're saying that it is the Christian God. I would say another possibility could be absolutely nothing.
Okay, what you see, your position by your own concession right now has been reduced to absurdity. Yeah, let me explain to you why. Okay, mm-hmm. What you're saying is possibility and impossibility are prescribed by nothing.
No, I'm not saying they're prescribed. You're trying to have some kind of prescription be a part of it. Considering what's possible or impossible is something that we do as thinking beings.
No, you keep on. You're not focusing here. You keep on segueing over to the discussion of possibilities. I'm not asking you about possible things. I'm asking you, what is it that is indispensably primary metaphysically that prescribes any and all possibility? What is it?
So your answer to that, I know, is the Christian God.
I want your answer. Yeah, you already reject my answer.
Well, my answer to that is I don't have a direct answer to that because
so then
because I don't have enough information to make that determination.
The possibility?
I don't have enough determination to make a determination of what prescribes that.
Are you making statements of what is?
I would prefer to use the word what seems to be.
Okay, but you're stating what is and what's possible, are you not?
Yeah, I'm considering what it is, and it seems to me that it's possible for certain things to be.
Is it possible that it seems to be that way?
Sorry.
When you say it seems that way, you're invoking it as something that is or that is possible.
Yeah.
Good. Now, what I want to know is, what is it that prescribes any and all possibility? What is it? Do you have grounds for it?
Well, that's where scientific investigation can help. I don't have all.
No, it's a metaphysical.
Sorry, finish what you were saying, Randolph.
I'm done. I just said I don't have all the answers.
It's not an empirical question. It's a metaphysical one. Your position is that you can be neutral about what is irreducibly and indispensably primary, namely God, that you have a lack of belief in God, which is nothing more than a statement of your, an autobiographical statement of your personal psychology. Okay, it's trivially true. Now, since you will not and you refuse to assert that the God of the Bible, in virtue of his natural and special revelation, is that which is irreducibly primary and indispensably primary, then when you make any assertions at all they will either be arbitrary, which will consequently put your worldview, with your worldview, if all of your statements of possibility are without grounding, your worldview as an atheist in your rejection of the God of the Bible will be reduced to absurdity. So either any of your statements of possibility will be arbitrary, or the statements of possibility will be in virtue of what is irreducibly and indispensably primary. So are your statements of possibility arbitrary, or are they in virtue of whatever is indispensable and irreducibly primary?
So absolute. No, what did you say? What was the word you used? Not absolute.
I used irreducibly and indispensably primary. So when you make assertions of any assertion of possibility and impossibility, either of those statements in your atheist frame of reference will be arbitrary, or they will be not arbitrary in virtue of what is irreducibly and indispensably primary. So
arbitrary as in subjective. I would say that everything that I'm stating would be subjective, because
no, it's worse than that.
My experience.
Go on ahead, Randolph.
Oh, it's subjective because it's based on my own interpretations, my own experiences, which could be wrong.
Worse than that, okay? What you're doing is you're doing bait and... I didn't introduce the idea of subjectivity at all. I said that your statements of possibility are completely and utterly baseless foundationally. Are your statements of possibility without God, okay? Are your statements of possibility foundationally groundless or not?
My assessments of what I observe to be reality are not baseless. They're based on my own experiences interacting with reality, and also based on the experience of others who document it scientifically and whatnot.
That you're not addressing the question. All you're doing is you're building one possibility after another. What I'm asking you is that you're making statements of possibility. I want to know that are any and all of your statements of possibility, are these all collectively arbitrary without a reference or origin to something that is irreducibly and indispensably primary? Or are your statements of possibility grounded in something that's irreducible and indispensably primary? Which it's either arbitrary or it's something irreducibly primary. Which do you choose?
Randolph, just before you address that, in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we're going to take a few questions from the chat, not too many, and then before that we'll have closing statements, then questions, and then we'll round it up.
Okay, so my assessments are not based on what's irreducibly primary, assuming that that's the source of everything in the universe, because I don't know what that is.
So your statements are arbitrary then?
When you phrase it that way, the answer is yes.
Okay, so you've now admitted that in your rejection of the revelation of the Christian God, your worldview has been reduced to absurdity.
I don't think so.
Well, you just admitted it. You said all of your statements of possibility are baseless.
When it's in the context of irreducibly primary, having one source to everything in the universe, in that context, yes.
Well, good. Now that you've admitted that, okay, then all of your statements of possibility and impossibility are completely arbitrary. And therefore, in your worldview, since there is no identifiable, irreducible, and indispensable primary, then anything goes. Okay? Do you want to dispute that?
If I'm to ask you the same question, what is your answer?
My question is, what is irreducible and indispensably primary is the triune God of Scripture, who has revealed himself, of whom you reject. Now, in your worldview,
What are you going to say there, Randolph? Go on ahead.
I just don't accept it. I'm not outright rejecting it, saying that it's wrong. I'm just not accepting it.
It's a non-affirmation.
Don't just keep talking in the back and expect us to continue on with your conversation. Stop when I mute you, listen to Randolph, and then address it when you come back. Just don't keep talking.
Yeah, you're not neutral toward the God of the Bible. You have decided. I asked you earlier, do you assert that the God of the Bible is the irreducible and indispensable primary that prescribes all possibility. I said, do you assert that? And you said, no. Therefore, for you, the God of the Bible is not necessary. And if he's not necessary, then you deny him by implication and indirectly. Now, in your worldview, does anything go?
Okay, so you have made a logical error here because you're assuming that it's a black and white fallacy. If it's not one, it's the other. And
It's called the law of excluded middle.
yeah, and
Are you familiar with it?
yes, and that doesn't apply here because there are other possibilities that need to be ruled out. Others that
Okay, so the answer
Wait, when I unmute you, let him finish.
I finished.
yeah, you gotta chill out, okay? You gotta let the conversation flow. It's going well.
Now, in a few
Now,
minutes,
it's
and
not
then
a
I'll
black
finish.
and white fallacy. It's called the law of excluded middle. Okay, I can form it in two different ways to you. Either something is A or it's not A. Either all possibility derives from God as the irreducible primary or not. I just formulated the law of excluded middle where I plugged in God as the value. So it's not a black and white fallacy.
Well, you have, and I'm not accepting the law of excluded middle as being applicable here.
So you do not accept the law of excluded middle as absolute, invariant, and universal? You reject that?
As being applicable in this case. Because
Okay,
there are
no, you're not okay. So you outright reject that something is either A or not A. Can something be A and not A at the same time and in the same sense? So can God not exist and exist at the same time and in the same sense?
I'm not rejecting that. I'm
That's the law of excluded middle.
No. It is the law of excluded middle, and you have explained that just fine. I don't have any disagreement with you on what the law of excluded middle is. What I'm saying is the question you're posing to me is limiting the options, and you're relying
It's either God
on
or not God.
Yeah, and I'm saying, have you considered the possibilities of multiple deities?
No, you're not understanding. That would be under the category of not.
Yeah, he asked you a direct question. Please answer him. You asked him. He answered. Now, if you could please answer his. We will be rounding up. This is a 2-minute warning.
And listen, dude, you need to take a chill pill. Okay, you are micromanaging, and you are ruining the natural flow of the conversation. Okay.
The conversation
Now I did
will be
answer the
ending.
question.
You're going to be
okay?
making a closing
when we
statement.
talk about God, okay, I'm talking about the irreducible primary. Okay, if you had multiple gods, they couldn't be the irreducible primary because none of them would be ultimate. Okay, that's a fallacy which you just offered. Now the issue is simply this: either we have God as ultimate, unconditionally non-dependent, and irreducibly and indispensably primary, meaning it's singular, or not. You might have other conceptualizations out there, but the point is you cannot offer other worldviews that are not your own. Okay, if you do not accept another worldview, then you deny it from the worldview that you hold to. But you have already admitted that every time you make an assertion, every time you invoke a possibility, what is or what cannot be, you say you don't know what prescribes it. So I'll ask you once again, what is it that prescribes what is possible and demarcates what is not possible? What is it?
So I don't have a direct answer to that. I considering that there are multiple possibilities. There is absolutely nothing. There is a possibility to consider of.
They're not possible. They're not possible. You want to know why?
Let me finish.
Sure. Okay.
Another possibility is what you're proposing, which is the Christian God, and another possibility is multiple deities, gods and or goddesses, working together as a team to make it happen. So right off the bat, I'm saying three different things. So
they couldn't be irreducibly primary.
Hang on. Because of that, I cannot accept one particular answer, any of them, unless I can rule out the others first.
You're not understanding.
I'm trying to avoid a false dichotomy.
No, you're not understanding. You cannot talk about what is irreducibly primary as a possibility. Okay, because whatever is because that's incoherent. Because what is irreducibly primary would be a necessary entity. It would not be contingent. Possibilities are contingencies that are prescribed, but what is irreducibly primary. Now, if you do not accept that God or the God of the Bible is what is irreducibly primary, all right, in order for you to say anything out of your mouth, any reason at all, you're going to be telling me what is possible or impossible. Now, either there is something that provides for any and all possibility and demarcates impossibility, or there is not, or not. Either it is identifiable or it is not identified. Now, can you identify what is irreducibly primary, which prescribes what is possible? Because if you can't, your atheist worldview has been reduced to absurdity.
Okay, first of all, there isn't an atheist worldview that I hold. I happen to be an atheist, but you're talking about either there is something or there is nothing. And that, again, is having an
your atheist worldview.
You seem to have an expectation that, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe confirm for me, do you see that if there's absolutely nothing, that do you take the position that nothing could come out of it?
My position that it is impossible for the God of the Bible not to exist. Now, in order for you,
that doesn't answer my question. So you're talking about, we were talking about absolutely nothing, and so you're saying there must be either something or there must be absolutely nothing. So
no,
if there was absolutely no, okay.
No, I'm just. You're not making yourself clear.
Okay, clarify. What do you mean when you say either there's something or there's absolutely nothing?
My position is that it is impossible for God not to exist, and it is impossible for God not to be the irreducible primary. Now, the problem I'm having with you is you keep on acknowledging that you have no identifiable, irreducible, and indispensable primary. Am I correct that you have no identifiable, irreducible primary?
In that context, you're correct.
Right.
We're going to get very close to the end here. If you could just go 1 or 2 minutes, and then we're going to have closing statements. If Randolph can make a closing statement first.
Okay.
Since you have acknowledged that you have no identifiable, irreducible primary, then any secondary statements, possibility and impossibility, all secondary statements are going to be statements of possibility and impossibility. So whatever statements that you make of impossibility or impossibility, they are arbitrary. Because if they're not arbitrary, then they will be grounded in an irreducible primary of existence, that which demarcates all possibility and impossibility. So it is not a black and white fallacy. Either your statements of possibility and impossibility will have an ultimate grounding, or it will not have an ultimate grounding. So do any of your statements of possibility have ultimate grounding?
Whenever you answer that, Randolph, if you can then finish it up with your closing statement, we will go to Duncan for a closing statement, and then we'll take a few questions from the chat.
So having that grounding in what ultimately is how the universe came to be is actually not relevant to predicting possibilities for how a dice is going to roll. It
absolutely is. Have you not been listening to me?
No,
you cannot talk about possibility without a grounding, because then anything goes. There's nothing to restrict or nothing to implement what is possible or impossible. So, okay, is in your worldview, is anything possible?
Because I don't know everything about the cosmos, I can't rule out that ultimate possibility. The
answer yes?
Let him finish, and then we will do a closing statement.
I said I can't rule it out. I can't rule it
No.
out.
Is anything possible?
Because I can't rule it out, I can't say for certain. I don't have a completely filled up position.
If you can't rule it out, then anything goes. And if anything goes, you can't make affirmations or denials, because there will be nothing. You're not understanding the philosophical dilemma you're in.
I'm not claiming that anything goes. I'm also not claiming that.
Okay, then what prescribes what's
going
possible
round in
and
circles at the end. We're going round in circles. We're going round in circles here. And
See, you're just evading the question.
No,
I'm
nobody. Right. Okay, Randolph, if you can do
because
a closing
your worldview
statement.
has been reduced to absurdity.
Duncan, we've already said we're going to go for this long, and then we're going to have some questions and stuff. So, Randolph, if you can please do a closing statement, address any of the points. We'll give you a couple of minutes, and then we'll give the same time to Duncan.
Okay. When it comes to indispensable and irreducible primary that prescribes all possibility and all impossibility, that is a pretty tightly scoped question. It is. It seems to carry with it an assumption that there is one primary, indispensable and irreducibly primary source of life, the universe, and everything. And I'm not convinced that there is just one thing necessarily. I'm not ruling out that there's just one. I'm not ruling out that there's multiple. I also consider the possibility of absolutely nothing, which would have no rules and have no laws of physics necessarily. You can't determine whether or not it does. So if we look at that from a philosophical standpoint, absolutely nothing, it's possible something could come out of that, including a deity or multiple deities, if we really want to take it literally, as I think we should. So I'm left with trying to rule out one of these possibilities. Absolutely nothing, one deity, multiple deities being the source of absolutely everything in our universe. And I can't, because I simply don't have enough information. So a question like that, to me, seems to be not really fair to expect a direct yes or no answer from.
That's amazing. Not fair to ask you to ground your worldview?
No. I think it's the question itself is.
It's a legitimate question.
Yes, it is.
You want to be free. You want to be free to make assertions. You want to be free to make assertions.
Finish what you're saying, Randolph.
The expectation that it carries is that there's a simple yes or no answer to it. And so if that's the only proposition, that it must be the Christian God, then I have to say that I can't accept that proposition.
You can't even say that because you have no grounding for it.
Just like I can't accept the proposition that everything came from absolutely nothing, and just like I can't accept the proposition that everything came from multiple deities working together as a team. We're stuck with the same problem, with the same challenge with all three of these possibilities.
Right. Well, that's his closing statement.
Again, your worldview.
That's his closing statement. That's his 3 minutes he went for nearly there for a closing statement. Duncan, if you can address in 3 minutes what you think about Randolph's view, and we'll take questions.
Yeah, your worldview has been totally reduced to absurdity in your non-acceptance and denial of the Christian God. You keep on making, you have. You refuse to assert the necessity of God as the irreducibly primary. When you refuse to assert it, then it is an indirect denial. You want to describe your position as to insulate it as a statement of personal psychology, but you can't get away with that when I ask you, do you assert that God is the irreducible primary and necessary for all facts? And you said, no, I won't assert it. So you are indirectly claiming God is not necessary. Now, I've asked you over and over and over and over again, what is it that is irreducibly and indispensably primary that prescribes what is possible? And you have repeated over and over again, you have no idea what that is. So you have basically admitted that when you speak forth any possibilities at all, it is without reference to what will prescribe it. So therefore, whatever you assert, whatever you deny, whatever you affirm, whatever you negate is entirely arbitrary. Because if it's not arbitrary, those possibilities would be prescribed by what is irreducibly primary. But you say you don't know what that is. So in your rejection of the Christian worldview, your worldview has been reduced to absurdity, but you keep on talking and monologuing as though your worldview had not been reduced to absurdity. The moment you admit, I do not know what prescribes what is possible and impossible, and then thereafter from there, you make statements of what is, what can be, and what cannot be, what is possible and impossible. All of these statements, by your own concession, are arbitrary. And this is what your worldview is reduced to when you try to play this little cat and mouse game where, I lack belief. Well, you don't lack belief. Okay, you're not neutral because you are starting with reason. Your reason operates without the necessity of referencing God. I'll ask you a simple question: does your reason operate without the necessity of God being referenced?
I don't need to have a deity to inform decisions.
No, we're not going to go back and forth and do a jumping in. We're going to do questions. We've both had our closing statements. Please don't jump back and forth. If I can just switch over here. I've got all the questions that's been coming, so if we can't, just give me a minute. I can't be looking at both the questions that's came and the questions that's coming. So, I'm going to unmute both people. Questions, I will assume, are going to go towards both of you, unless it's directly stated. And first one I have is from Korag. Is it true that I can't know anything to be true unless I start with God? Except that I can't know anything to be true unless I start with God. I can't know that. Would either of you like to address that?
The answer to the question is if you do not acknowledge that the God of the Bible is what is irreducibly primary and indispensably primary, then your worldview will have no grounds for knowledge or truth statements, or for even the capacity to invoke what is possible or impossible, because therefore it would simply be arbitrary. Without the God of the Bible ontologically existing, you wouldn't be able to know anything.
Randolph?
Yeah, I'm not on the same team with this. With the idea that I don't agree with the idea that all knowledge comes from the Bible. I think it's totally an option. There are people from other societies who have never heard of the Bible and have no familiar with Christianity, and some don't even believe in deities at all. Some tribes in Amazon even where people have gone and tried to preach religion to them, and they haven't been successful at it. They don't even have in the language any words for deities, so it took a while for them to get the concept across. So I'm not convinced that a deity is necessary for people to develop knowledge.
Is that statement you just made, is it arbitrary?
Yeah, please don't answer that. No, we're going to go on to the next question.
Why don't you let him answer it? He's a big boy. Let him answer it.
No, because we'll be here all night. We'll be here all night.
Are you trying to cover for him?
No, because the next question's directly...
What you just said, Randolph, was it arbitrary?
Everything's arbitrary.
No, I'm asking for a sincere answer. Is what you just said arbitrary?
Yes.
Okay, good. Are all of your assertions...
That's another question. Question for Randolph from the chat. You have miscategorized God several times as a possibility. Are you aware you're making a mistake every time you do this? They would like Duncan's comments on that, and that comes from Parakick33.
Yeah, you are miscategorizing God. Okay, what is ultimate, the ground of all being? What is irreducibly primary in existence that provides for contingency? Is what prescribes for possibility. God is in the category of what is necessary, okay? So whether or not you accept that God is that which is necessary, to speak of God or what is not God as a possibility is a category error, Randolph.
You asked me about possibilities and impossibilities, so it's I was trying to address those points.
No, I asked you what prescribes possibilities.
We'll be here all night. We'll be here all night.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, you have admitted here tonight that all of your assertions without God are arbitrary. Are you clear on that?
He said that. Yes, he's already said yes. He's already said
okay.
Yes.
Is that statement?
Next question.
So without
next question from the chat. Darth, would you try an argument against messenger reveals?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, I'll send you his details if you want to contact him. Okay. Next question after that is from Korag. What is your definition of fallible, and does it apply to him? There's no name, so I'll assume it's towards both of you.
Well, Randolph, you can go first if you want.
I don't claim to be infallible. I think fallibility is a part of life, It's part of the learning process, and it's an important part of our life experience to make some mistakes, or to have the option to make mistakes, I should say, and to learn from them, because I think that helps us to develop our character, our personal character, in the best possible way. It gives us the opportunity to do that.
Okay, so what Randolph just said was completely and entirely arbitrary, because he has conceded here several times tonight he has no idea whatsoever what prescribes any possibility at all. So again, Randolph, speaking out of a not God worldview, has made arbitrary statements, and if they're arbitrary, then they're irrational.
Okay, next question, another one from Korag. Why should I believe your cognitive faculties are working properly in which to evaluate my worldview?
I don't even know if my cognitive faculties are working correctly. I believe they are, but I do favor doubt as my ally, and I do wonder sometimes if I am making the right assessments on things. And I think that's an important thing for everybody to do, is to try to apply doubt to everything, every statement you make. If you are able to apply doubt to it, and in the most objective possible way, you can hopefully be better at making decisions and determining what seems to be realistic and what isn't.
Well, I think a good example of fallibility here on full display is Randolph has admitted he has no grounds whatsoever to assert what is possible or impossible, yet he persists in making statements of possibility, which he has admitted they're entirely arbitrary. Now, you can correct it if you want, Randolph. You can tell us that your statements are not arbitrary, but then it's going to be incumbent upon you to tell us what it is that is indispensable that prescribes your statements of possibility. Okay,
we've already covered that.
We'll do that next time.
That's right. We've covered it, and you've admitted you're arbitrary.
We're going to do that.
Your position has been reduced to absurdity.
Next question. Next question is, I would like to hear Dunkin Atheism's analysis of Randolph's claim that atheism is not a worldview. And if you could do it not 10 minutes long.
It's patently absurd. If atheists were more well-read and studied, they wouldn't make such a silly statement. Okay. Lacking belief in a creator God, the creator-creation distinction. The creator-creator distinction is a world view. To lack belief in a worldview is to deny that worldview indirectly. Okay? Yeah. Well, I'll explain it to you, Randolph.
No, we're not going to have
the creator. Let me just give me a second.
You've got 1 minute.
Okay, it's actually very simple. The creator-creation distinction is a worldview. By virtue of the law of excluded middle, something is either A or not A. If you lack belief in another worldview, then you are speaking from a specific worldview, which will be the basis for its viability and intelligibility. Any worldview that you lack belief in, you deny in virtue of the worldview that you're speaking from. Okay, it's that simple.
Not necessarily.
No, then you have to reject the law of excluded middle.
Well, law of excluded middle is applicable not in every case.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So God can exist and not exist at the same time, Randolph?
Next question.
Okay.
I'm going to mute.
Does that work, Randolph? Can God exist and not exist?
Both ears are muted. Now, next question. Darth, have you demonstrated your incredible primary is sourced from a fully formed intelligence without violating an infinite regression?
Repeat the question. It was not very well written.
How has Darth demonstrated his incredible primary is sourced from a fully formed intelligence without violating an infinite regression?
It's not an infinite regression. Our statement that the God of the Bible exists is revelatory. There would not be any other means outside of God's revelatory actions by which we could know that God exists. So it's not an infinite regress. You don't know what you're talking about, whoever wrote the question.
Okay. Next question from Korag again. Is it true that I can't know anything to be true unless I start with God, except that I can't know anything to be true unless I start with God?
That's a good question. You can know things because the God of the Christian scripture ontologically exists, which entails his property set, which provides for human intelligibility because of his plan. You can not believe in that, but you as an unbeliever can know things in spite of your rebellion against God that you don't know him. But without God ontologically existing with a specific property set that is necessary and sufficient for human intelligibility, you wouldn't be able to know anything.
You want to address that, Randolph? You have to unmute yourself.
I would just like to say that I agree with Dunkin Atheism saying that we can not believe in things.
Yeah, but that's a statement of possibility that you have admitted is arbitrary.
Right, and it's one that you agree with.
We're not going back and forth. Next question is from Parakick33. When Randolph says certain things are possible, is he just verbalizing his fantasies, or does he assert assertions depend on something that determines what is possible or not?
Okay, I do strive to make statements about things in reality based on my experience in reality and my understanding of how reality works. I also try to avoid making absolute statements, because very often absolute statements turn out to be fairly easily debunked or contradicted with a simple example, and we've seen this over and over again. So I prefer to speak in terms of possibilities and what seems to be the case, because I strive to make statements that are objective as much as I possibly can. I know that if I'm talking about something like a fantasy, like the Lord of the Rings story, then I will just call it a fantasy.
Do you want to address that?
Yeah.
Duncan?
Is everything you just said arbitrary, Randolph?
I suppose it is.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Question.
Therefore, you don't know anything, do you?
You used a question. One last question from the chat is from Mrs. India. Question for Darth. Can you prove, without using the Bible, that God is the only true God?
Without the revelatory actions of God, both in natural and special revelation, there could be no intelligibility, beliefs, or even knowledge. If you deny that the God of the Bible and his revelatory actions in natural revelation and special revelation communicate to us what is irreducibly primary and indispensably primary in order for it to know things and to assert possibilities. If you do not accept that, that is a denial. And that is what we have seen on full display here tonight with Randolph. And he keeps on admitting everything he says is arbitrary. So when he takes the without God position, his worldview, everything he asserts is arbitrary, and his worldview has been reduced to absurdity. This is the consequences of denying the revelation of God.
Right. Well, I think that's it. I want to thank everyone for turning up. Really appreciated Duncan turning up. Really appreciated Randolph turning up, and most of all, the live chat. Without them, there would be no point in even doing this. So I want to say thank you very much to everybody. If you have anything to say before we finish, either of the Duncan or Randolph?
What was that?
To clarify, when I'm saying that things are arbitrary, what I'm saying is that the things I'm saying ultimately could qualify as subjective. The arbitrary is in response to Dunkin Atheism's limiting the scope to what he limits it to.
So you're doing a bait and switch now like you did earlier. No. I didn't ask you if what you were saying was subjective. I didn't ask you if everything you asserted was subjective. I said, is it arbitrary? And you have repeatedly stated over and over again, it's arbitrary. And if it's arbitrary, it's simply irrational.
Yeah, arbitrary in the sense of it being subjective rather than...
No, objective. You're bait and switch again, Randolph.
No, it's not bait and switch. I'm trying to be clear.
Of course it's bait and switch. I didn't ask you about subjectivity. I asked you, are your predications, are your propositions that you're asserting, do they have ultimate grounds? Okay? I didn't ask you whether it was objective or subjective. Do your statements of possibility, are they grounded in something that is indispensably primary? And you say, I don't know what it is. Therefore, Your verbalizations are by definition arbitrary. Trying to smuggle in subjective is
No, the source.
Randolph, just going to say, Randolph, address that, and then we will all end.
So you are specifying a criteria of things being indispensable and irreducibly primary that prescribes all possibility and all impossibility. That is quite specific. And within that context, it is a bit of a trap, I sense, and it would make everything seem arbitrary, that I have to say. So that's why I was saying yes. I was answering that question as yes, that would be arbitrary in that context.
So, yeah, well, I'm going to just say...
I want to know if everything you say is actually...
Okay, I wanted to bring you on and say thank you, but you're just going to go on with the whole thing, and we said we were going to finish. We can always come back and do this again.
Okay, yeah.
I just want to say thank you very much for everyone to turn it up, and I really appreciate it. Hit that button. Yeah. We'll see you all again tomorrow. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Dunkin Atheism. Yeah. Thank you, MathPig.
That's it.